Hey everybody, welcome to PDQ Live. I'm here with special guests. So in the before times, we talked DNS and we mentioned a whole bunch of threats and said, hey, there's a solution for this, but we didn't go into what those solutions were. And the listeners said, boy, we would sure like to know what those solutions are. And from that, we brought Brigg back to teach us all some stuff.
Yes, I'm going to be providing some of those solutions. As you may have guessed, my name is Brigg, and I'm with PDQ.
Hey, he's almost lifelike.
Well, and this is Josh. Let's not forget Josh.
Yeah, hi.
Josh. Hi, Josh.
I'm here.
Well, all the threats that we talked about, almost every single one, the solution was DNSSEC, right?
Yes. Well,
And
for many of
it's-
them, yeah.
Many of them. And its new little best friend,
We put
DNS
that.
over HTTPS. We're going to talk about that too,
Yep,
right?
we are.
So here are some of the things we talked about, Brigg. Maybe you can refresh us on some of these, and or Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
Sure. The first one may be a DNS cache poisoning and or spoofing, right? You can modify that DNS response in some way.
Yep. And then DNS amplification or reflection, which is just basically a denial of service attack.
Yep. Or redirecting DNS, right? Instead of like spoofing or giving something poisoned, let's just like redirect where that comes and goes to.
Yep. And then DNS tunneling, hiding DNS packets into a little tunnel. Oopsie doopsie.
Yep.
So, yep.
All right, there we
Oopsie,
go.
oopsie.
So those are all the same thing, but the solution is right here.
Yes, the solution is listed on the
this
sheets
paper.
here
So
called
I'm just gonna
DNSSEC.
make sure. There you go.
Ooh.
And we're done.
Everybody got a screenshot? All right.
Exciting
Read it
webcast.
yourself.
All right.
Done.
Okay, so since we're going to be talking about these two subjects today, I wanted to kind of highlight what DNSSEC is and also what DNS over HTTPS is and some of the differences between the two, some of the nuances. We're not going to go a lot or in depth about the signatures and things like that, but we'll be discussing basically how to set this up. But the first thing is why DNSSEC? So it was developed in 1997, but earlier than that, and it was designed to overcome some of the limitations or security limitations of DNS. DNS was built in a time of innocence when everything was fine with the internet. There were no hackers. It was very small, and as it grew, people understood, oh, there's a problem here. People can do bad things with DNS and redirect, and so DNSSEC was born. And DNSSEC is really, it stands for Domain Name System Security Extensions. And it's really just an extension of DNS. It's not an add-on. It's not, or it is an add-on. It's not anything that changes DNS, how it works. It's just basically something that you put on top of that. And that's just a signature to validate records. And it will overcome a lot of like DNS cache poisoning, a lot of the things that we discussed here on the slide. DNS over HTTPS is very different. What it does is it encrypts traffic between an endpoint and the DNS server, assuming that the DNS server also is HTTPS enabled and it's signed. Very similar to how you go to an HTTPS website, works the same exact way. So it prevents snooping, and which is actually really nice because your ISP probably has a vested interest in snooping on you and then selling your data, or at least some ISPs do. And so this prevents that. It also prevents bad actors, ads, things like that from monitoring your traffic. Chrome, I believe, has had it in, you found 104.
Yeah.
I found it as early as in the 80s, but it was like buried underneath. So browsers will do this. Firefox, Edge, Windows itself will actually do this. Chrome, any Chromium-based browser will also do this. I checked on Vivaldi too. It works. So you have DNS over HTTPS is pretty widely used now. I think most of the browsers come out with a default. If it's available, it will do it. There are only a certain number of providers that offer this, but they're mostly the major ones. Ones that I can think of: Cloudflare, Google, and then Quad9, and then there are a couple of others as well that provide that. It also prevents spoofing because you can't actually see the traffic, so you would need to decrypt the traffic. And because it's signed with a hash, you could technically feasibly do this given enough time and enough effort, and the universe is infinite. You could probably figure out what's going or what's happening or where a particular query is going. But again, it's encrypted, so it's relatively safe.
So question, you guys. If it came out in 97, why did it take so long to be adapted, and why isn't it adapted everywhere yet? Is it hard?
Well, DNSSEC or
DNSSEC.
DNSSEC, it's not particularly hard. It does require like multiple signings So you've got your key signing key, and then you've got your zone signing key, which we'll go over here in a little bit. So it's the implementation of it, really. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cryptography is hard to implement. Not hard, but you've got to be very thoughtful and deliberate about it. So, yeah.
Okay.
And so back to DNS over HTTPS, it does come with some downsides. Downsides are that if you're monitoring DNS traffic and an endpoint within your ecosystem does not, or you don't want, or you're doing DNS monitoring and they have that enabled, you would not be able to see their DNS traffic, which can have a downside if you're trying to look for malicious software. There are a couple of malicious software programs out there that do use DNS over HTTPS for evil. So it's a problem. And if you're also monitoring for like social media access, if you have kind of limitations on what people can access, then DNS over HTTPS will mask that and you will not be able to see that. So a lot of places will actually, and we'll see this when we get into the GPO, but a lot of places will actually turn that off and make it unavailable so that it cannot be used. And they do that at the policy level so that any of their endpoints can't utilize that. So there are some limitations. So if you were to distill down like the essential difference between DNS over HTTPS and DNSSEC, DNSSEC validates that the information that you're getting is from the source that you expect. And DNS over HTTPS encrypts or ensures the secrecy of the query that you're actually making. So that's the essential difference there. So
should you use them both together?
yeah, I would recommend that. Yep.
Okay.
Which is hence why the
Let's do
show
it.
is also about those two things.
Okay.
So all right. So setting up DNSSEC is relatively easy process. All right.
Ooh, switcheroo.
Rotate.
Little switcheroo. All right. Just open up your DNS manager and just right click on the zone, go down to DNSSEC, sign the zone. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can do the use default settings to sign the zone. I have no idea what this actually does. I have never gone through this. I don't ever, that's not something that I would normally ever choose to do. So I just use customize the zone signing parameters, go through this process. This talks about the key master. So when you're setting this up on your primary DC, you will want to choose this as the key master. Or if you're using a primary DNS server, you will choose that as the key master. Whichever one is first, or the first time that you're doing this. If you have already set this up on another DC or another DNS server, then you would select another primary server and then put that server in here. And you can only have one key master per domain. And I don't know if you can have one key master for forest. I think it's specific for domains and subdomains only.
So why wouldn't you just have two, let them fight it out so you know the strongest DNS server has survived?
So I was thinking about this and I was reading about and doing research on this. I was wondering what would happen.
Probably
during
bad.
that.
It'd probably be conflicting signs.
You would have conflicting signs, and so there would be no validation and no way of determining which one was the true or source of truth, and things would not work. But it is something that I actually want to test because I was thinking about it just as a thought exercise of what would happen. All right, and then you can just click next here, and this talking about the key signing key. So what the key signing key is, so you've got two sets of, well, you've actually more than that, but you've got two main keys. You've got your zone signing key, which actually signs the zone. I know this is dreadfully boring, but it's important to remember this. You've got your zone signing key, that signs the zone. Then you have your key signing key, and that signs all of the keys, which includes the DNS key and the zone signing key. So you have to have two levels of trust here. You have to have one that says, yes, the zone is signed, and I know that signature is correct because the key signing key has actually signed that key. So there's multiple layers of trust here, and that's important because everything is hierarchical. So at the top, when you do when you sign the zone key, everything else below that, any subdomains, any child zones, those are also signed. So we want to make sure that trust, and that goes to trust anchors. That trust is established throughout, and that we're able to validate that, yep, the zone is signed by a valid key. So that's the boring answer for that. All right, and then this just allows you to add the key signing key. You can choose 256, 512, whatever suits your fancy. Most of the defaults here are fine. Just select OK. You've got that there. You can select multiple keys if you want. Don't really need to, though. The zone signing key, very similar. You can add that. Rachel would appreciate the fact that we're using, where is it?
Longer key length.
There we go. Yep. 2048. Again, the default values here are going to be fine, unless you have a specific reason that you need to change those. And then here's kind of an important point about in the DNSSEC, which is just the next secure. So when DNSSEC was first developed, not only did we need to validate that the information that we received back from the zone was correct and that we could validate that, but also that anything that did not exist within the zone was also validated to not exist within the zone. So it was a positive and a negative. And so INSSEC was designed specifically to say, like, okay, this record does not exist, and I can validate that. The problem with that is that it allowed you to do basically a walk through the zone. So you could essentially just enumerate every single object or resource record that was in the zone, and then you would, of course, have an enormous amount of information at your disposal that you could use for nefarious purposes. So INSSEC 3, I don't know what happened to INSSEC 2 or if there was an INSSEC 1, but INSSEC 3 was designed to prevent that by creating a hash. So you have a hash of what the resource record is. You search for that. The hashes hash it out and pull it. That was really bad. I'm sorry. They pull it back and then and return the record, whether it exists or not. Like, no, I didn't see that hash in the resource record. So there's no way for you to be able to get information about like the entire zone file. So you can just make sure that you use INSSEC 3. You can use opt-out, but you shouldn't really need to do that, especially in a domain environment.
So it does still have just NSEC, but in my experience, if they've updated something in security, there's a reason for it. So
Yes.
just don't.
You should, yes, always use the latest updated version. Yeah. All right. And then trust anchors. So trust anchors are important. You want to enable distribution if you're going to have this within like an Active Directory domain where you've got multiple domain controllers or multiple DNS servers. You want to enable the distribution of trust anchors. So essentially when a zone file is transferred from one server to another, what will happen is the signature will also follow with that. And so you've got, regardless of which DNS server you query, you will always have the same signature and you'll always be able to validate. And then, and conversely, you always will know if something is amiss. So enable that. And then you can leave this as is. So this is one of those strange areas where I tried to find more information on what this does. And it's really mostly just like root level kind of zone file, TTLs, and how everything works. DS here stands for DNS signature or the domain signature. It's actually, there's a specific thing, but it's basically the signature. It's not like a domain service or anything like that. So it's all DNS. The default values here are fine. I've never seen anyone change these. You could probably change the TTLs if you want to be more aggressive, but yeah.
Maybe turn off SHA-1 if you really wanted to, but that is a hyper-specific style of attack to target that SHA-1 algorithm.
Yeah, and multiple layers that you would have to peel back on that onion. And if you really wanted to kind of exercise that, okay, sure. All right, and then you will get this, which is just kind of an overview of all of the things that we mostly default chose, and then you will choose next. And again, we are doing this in production. We have not done this before, so we may have interesting results, and that's always fun when you're doing that live. All right. And we'll finish that, and now we should have a signed zone.
So it's worth pointing out that once you set this up, there's not really an undo. Like if you turned it on, it's on unless you're looking to rebuild your DNS.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything where you could kind of walk it back and just say like, oh yeah, DNSSEC isn't part of this anymore. I think you could just delete the zone and then and probably just start over with the zone again. Because it's a forward zone, so it shouldn't be very difficult to do that. So, yeah, and then you've got your key master, your zone signing key, your key signing key, next secure. So basically, all of the things that we just went through are available for changing. And again, I am seeing a lot of this for the first time with you because I have not set this up on this machine. So, all right.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right, exactly. All right. And did you want to talk about
Group policy?
Group policy and kind of walk us through that? And then, okay, cool.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that we set up a brand new 2022 domain controller So you said production, but it's not really.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not production.
So yeah, I know people at home are like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Because that's what I'd be saying. So this is a pretend domain that we made. So I'm going to jump over here to a group policy. And then I just named it. I didn't do anything to it. So DNSSEC. So let's make it.
So this is the part that tells your clients in this environment
Yep.
to look for the right stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm totally going to go to the wrong place. No, I didn't.
you
Yes.
did. You used it
Okay,
in the right
Windows,
spot.
and then I'm going to
Yep.
name resolution policy.
Yep.
I swear I clicked that, but I guess I didn't. Okay, so then the suffix is going to be your domain. This is a brand new domain.
PDQ.ninja.
PDQ. I knew I was going to do it backwards. PDQ.ninja.
Don't worry, I did it backwards.
I love that
a lot, too.
name. Okay, and then I'm going to leave this blank.
Yep. Yes.
And then enable DNSSEC in this rule. Then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to check this one, but I'm not going to check this bottom one.
Yep.
Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit create, and then it's going to add. I'm going to come over here. I should probably make this bigger so we can see what's going on, right?
Yeah, a name resolution policy table is kind of important. It's just an important aspect of how resolution occurs within Windows. So you want to review this and make sure that those values are the same, which is really just what Tara clicked above.
Okay, so we're all good.
Looks good to me.
And then I'm going to hit apply. So one thing I would do, because I'm a big chicken, is I would not scope this to my whole domain. I'd make a test OU. Just saying, I would. But
I
that's just
probably
me.
would apply it to the entire domain.
Okay,
Just send it.
Yeah.
because you guys are
Scream test
not-
everything.
You're not chickens, and I am. That's kind of interesting. I hit apply, and does it take a minute to propagate, you think?
No, you just gotta close out of it.
Okay,
You applied it.
Apply,
I did.
Apply and close.
I'd hit apply.
I did, but it didn't seem to go. Let's apply again.
I
Do you think it
clearly
went?
saw the apply flicker.
Did you?
Yep.
Okay. Let's
And
close
again.
then.
Yep.
Okay.
We can test it now.
Okay. So we're going to let Jordan take over now. Go for it, Jordan.
I am.
I don't know. I guess you are. Do it. So we're going to go to our
Well, we have
client
to- we have to
machine now.
Make sure the policy applies, right?
We're going to
Yeah.
do a group policy update on our target machine. So we have one machine in this domain. We're going to hope for the best. I put it at the root of the domain.
Did I spell everything right? We'll find out.
Let's see.
That worked.
All right, so this is just applying the policy. We're forcing it to go through, and then I probably do a GP result just because we want to make sure it actually applied before.
Yeah, I mean, we are doing it live. Let's
Yeah.
check. I think
Let's
it's
see what happens.
slash R.
Yeah, /R. And it should be capital R if you care about case sensitivity, but Jordan, because, it'll be up.
Oh, well, that's the user policies.
Okay, applied group policy objects. Nope, it's not listed there. There's an NA for whatever reason. We're an administrator, right?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Well-
We ran it as administrator, so
No, you made my account. Am I an administrator?
No.
Computer settings.
if
the
we
command prompt.
weren't, it wouldn't allow us to
Oh,
run the
command
command
prompt.
prompt as
Oh,
administrator.
yeah, there it is. DNSSEC, applied group policy object. Sorry,
It's
I
there.
was looking at the
There we
lower
go.
ones. Yep.
So their default policy, then DNSSEC. So it did apply.
Excellent.
All right, done.
Yes.
Success.
Nailed it.
So there is a PowerShell command you can run to test this out with the resolve DNS, and that is not what I wanted. I want to comment it. So just resolve DNS name, and then there's a attribute you can call. This is just a flag for true false if you're running it, and it's DNSSEC OK. And you have to specify. I don't know if we have to specify the server because we only have the one. So it's not like we're looking at it. I'm still going to just to be safe, but then the name of the record we're looking for, which
Yep.
I don't know off the top of my head, so I got to go back. Did you close our DNS? There we go. So S22-DC1, is that dash or .ninja?
Dash.
Ninja.
Let's do this.
Copy paste.
Not going to waste time typing like an animal. All right, so we got that, and then actually the server's going to be the same thing because that is in fact the server. I don't know if this one's necessary, but we'll find out. What did I get wrong here? DNSSEC. Okay, did I get the flag wrong? Oop, that's not. We want F8 to run it. There we go.
There we go.
So run that with the proper spelling. Hopefully my typo wasn't inappropriate. And I'll come back and I'll tell you about all of it if it's okay. So it gives you the section. There's the answer file. So all the information in there. If this comes back without anything, then it did actually apply and it is working. So Now, we don't really see anything here, but basically when it does a DNS query, it's going to verify that nothing changed in transit.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
record at the end is the same at the beginning.
Yep. So you can see the query type here is the RRSIG, which is just the resource record signature, which applies to the zone, or the zone actually signs that. So resource records are grouped. So like all of your MS records are considered just an RR group or a resource record group. And so this signs that entire group. So all of your MX records are signed because you have MX 10, 20, 30, whatever. So all of your A records, likewise, they're a resource
right
record
there.
group. So, and that's the signer. Yep. And you can see the query type is always going to be RRSIG.
Yep.
So it's perfect.
So we tested it, it works, so it doesn't work, and it's just, unfortunately, you don't really see anything on our side just because, I mean, if it showed us all the verification, we wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah, you can use Windows Network Monitor to capture some of this data. So you could actually do a query and you can capture it. You can see that it's actually sending that out if you really wanted to. Otherwise, you're just going to have to implicitly trust this.
Yeah, so ultimately it was you set the zone in DNS on the DNS servers,
Yep.
then group policy that says, hey, definitely we're going to force this.
Yep.
And then that will make it so the clients are all following the rules.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then all of this is still happening in plain text, though.
Yeah. Yep.
This is all plain text, and it's just the verification.
Yep. And so,
That's where
How-
DoH comes into play.
DoH it is.
Yes. And before you ask, Kelly did include instructions on how to do this, so it's in the description. Okay, let's go back to group policy. So I'm going to come back to my server now, which
I
I,
like that
think is
everyone's seeing our gangster cat now.
I really like the gangster
I
cat.
like the gangster cat. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, so now here's my DoH policy. It's blank, so let's make it. I just put it at the root again. So edit it. So this one is a preference. Nope, just kidding. It's a policy. So I'm gonna go to admin template.
It's not going fast for you, is it?
No, it's really not. Is it me? Josh is gonna say it's me. And then I'm gonna go to network. And then I'm gonna go to DNS client. And then I'm going to go to
You're up one.
Up
from your
one.
mouse.
Up one. Thank you. I wish that was at the very beginning. I kept looking for that. So I'm going to first enable it. I could put any else I wanted to. And this one has 3 settings that all of them freak me out. So I could either prohibit it,
I'm going to ask you a question about that.
ask me a question.
Why would you ever prohibit DNS over HTTPS?
Well, because I think you referred to this earlier, that this could be used for nefarious purposes and hackers use this to attack people. So if I
Yep.
was purposely wanting to prevent that, I could prohibit it.
Yep.
Also, if you have a policy in your company where you want to keep Jordan away from his Facebooks,
That's right.
I would use this you would have no idea I'm going to the Facebooks.
I bet you love social media. That seems right up your
I
alley.
live in it.
Oh, yeah, totally. So I can either allow it or I can require it. So because I've already said I'm a big baby, I'd be more inclined to allow it because if you scroll down over here, if I require it, it says, if there are no DoH capable DNS servers configured, name resolution will fail. That totally freaks me out.
So I'd say depending on what your business is.
Yeah.
If you were in a financial business, the idea of sending clear text anything should be absolutely not.
Yep.
But if your business is less sensitive in data, then I think allow is fine. But if depending on the business, require should be an option.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think something important to call out here too is in Windows land, the only DoH capable DNS forwarder is server 2022. So it doesn't even have to be a DC, but that DNS recursive resolver must be server 2022.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to hit allow because I'm a baby.
And I'm going to follow with what Josh said, that you can set the resolvers or the forwarders in your individual machines to go to a DoH capable server.
Okay.
But that is external and not internal to your own system.
Okay. And we're going to cover that in a minute with Jordan. So we're going to hit OK. And then that's already scoped. And we're done with the group policy. So now let's go back over to Jordan and he'll do his magic.
It's not magic.
All right, so we got to update policy again, get the new policy definitions.
Yeah, same thing. But thank goodness for up arrow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a second time typing something?
Okay, so here, it's a side question. While we're doing this, here's this. Oh, it already completed. Never mind.
I was on the computer. Now it's completed.
Okay.
You wasted time.
I did.
All right, make sure it actually did apply.
There it is.
Yeah,
Go.
we did it. All right. So what is it that you were going to jump into?
Side question, not at all related to what we're doing, but is would you spend 5 seconds up arrowing to the command, or would you spend 3 seconds typing out the command?
It would depend on the command.
I'm always an up arrow because that means I've at least typed it right once.
Yep.
So if it's GPU
Exactly.
result or something that I do frequently, for sure. But if it's something where I'm testing out like a new PowerShell command with many attributes,
Yeah.
I might want to be more careful typing it out just because I'm learning.
Okay.
Fair.
Fair.
All right, so this is a command. We're just basically going to get the list of the DoH server addresses that it has out there. There's a command for that one, and it's a long one. DNS. Can I just tab?
Yeah, I think you're down to. There it is.
All right. Oh, Shift tab. Oh man, I love PowerShell. I love it. All right, so if we just run that line, this is going to come back with everything that currently has the DoH. You mentioned Quad 9, Google, Cloudflare.
Yep.
They're already in there. This is by default.
These ship with Windows.
Windows,
This
yes.
is not configured. This just ships with Windows right now. These are not all of the DoH capable DNS resolvers.
Yep.
These just out of the box.
So
Yeah,
if
your
you're-
ISP might have them.
Yeah, so if you're having like you have to customize where you have to add your own to this list, that is possible. I don't think we're in a scenario for ours where we have to do that,
Nope.
but I'm just going to go and change get to add because PowerShell's great. So if we look at all the list of the commands we have here, the server address, so if we're looking to add one, we want to follow basically what's in this template here. It has server address. Do we want to allow the fallback, which as you can see, all the ones by default are no. So the server address, this would be if you're setting your own custom DNS server that you want to be able to do in this, you would put that address in here, which 1.1.2.87.
I like that address. That's a good one.
All right, so the next one is the template, and I don't know of anything where we would get that template, but I've noticed that looking through the parameters for it, this one isn't required, so I assume there's a default template it will use if you don't put that one in there. But if you're curious, you can actually grab the template they have here. They have the template HPS. You go look at that if you want to do some customization. That's where you dive into it. But there's a default. I'm not getting fancy here. Just poking Josh with my thumb, apparently.
Thanks.
All right, and then the last one is the allow fallback to UDP. This is set false by default. That's up to you. I mean, I'd stick with what's in there, but if you wanted to force it to be true, then that's just where you'd be $true. And so you can run that one. And if this was an actual IP, this is where you would add your own DNS client to be on the list for the server addresses. I think that's a niche case. I don't think it's commonly going to be required, but if you have to, it is a single line PowerShell. Just have to make sure that you're following the similar to what you pull down by default.
Yep.
Cool.
Now I think it's time for questions.
Yeah. Oh,
Why can't we hear him?
I don't know. Kelly ran away.
How about now?
Yeah,
Kelly
There
did
we
run
go.
away,
Yeah,
and he
Brock's in
left
the
me
hot seat.
charge.
Yes,
So-
Brock is going to be filling in for a moment, and here we go.
Yeah, we got some great questions. All right, starting off with the first one. How does the computer know to use DNSSEC versus regular DNS? Luke B.
Well, we covered that.
yeah, group policy.
Yeah, the group policy does it.
Yep, group policy basically says you will do this thing. You will validate this record on this zone. Yep.
That
Sweet.
was an easy answer. Okay.
All
Ready
right.
for the next one?
That was
Maybe they'll
almost
get
like
a little
speed.
harder. We'll see. All right, what's the risk of breaking something or causing problems in a production environment? James D.
Well, anytime when it comes to signing and encryption, if it goes wrong, there's not a lot of way back.
Yeah.
So there is risk, but if you follow the right steps and you make sure, I mean, obviously test it in a lab first. As long as your signing is correct, I don't believe there's risk, but the signing itself is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and DNSSEC is backwards compatible, right? So even
It
if
is.
that zone file is signed on the DNS server side, if a client asks for it and doesn't ask for a validating signature, it'll still get a valid response.
Yep. Well, it'll get a response.
But
The validity.
yes,
Yeah.
it could be questioned.
It could be questioned. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Cool. Next. Is there a point where you're better off to start over with your DNS? High res the second.
Yeah, what is your
It's
answer?
a difficult question because starting over is such a nebulous kind of thing. I mean, you can always start over. I don't know at what point you would need to start over.
So
You would, if you deleted some of the Active Directory zone information, you can bring that back. You can recreate it, but that would be accidental deletion would be really probably the only time that I would think that you would want to like basically redo your DNS. I think everything else can be corrected by just checking the zone files, setting up, just creating a happy, healthy DNS environment. So short of something very bad or making very bad decisions, DNS you should be able to fix it.
I think my tolerance for that depends on how common and frequent static entries are. Because if it's all dynamic, rebuilding and really, if you're just going back to a default, not all that complex. But if you're a lot of static and there's a lot of particulars in there, take heavy notes.
Yeah, you can dump out that zone file.
Yep. Yeah, the zone file's in System32 DNS, and you can actually, and I've recommended this before, you could just back those up, and then that way you always have like a copy in case something goes awry. Happy with the delete key or something.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, is there a way to block a bad actor from setting up their own DNS server and DNSSEC stuff? Similar to how you can use DHCP guarding. Just R.
So my initial take on this is if they have the permission to elevate a server to a DNS server, they have enough rights that you have bigger concerns.
Yeah. And and so long as you've set up the key master and there's the one key master and you've set up the key signing key and it's associated with that key master, then if someone were to set that up, you would have that conflict, that thought experiment that we were thinking about earlier, about like what would happen should you have two key masters. So I would say that you're going to experience some level of behavior. Also, they would need to apply the GPO to your endnotes that would say, hey, this is the key master, or this is the DNS, or use DNSSEC with this zone. They have to set that up. So that would be very difficult to do. And like Jordan said,
if they have that level of access, they're doing other things.
Yeah.
There were a couple other things. I mean, we glanced over them in both the group policy and as we started to sign things, there were options for external PKI, right? External certificate authorities that you can define in all of these places. We used the kind of self-signed easy route to set this up. But if you were concerned about it, you could use some external PKI with revolving keys.
Yep.
All right, a couple more.
Okay.
Can you post the PowerShell script command, Dominic M?
Yeah, I think Tara read
Which
that
one?
line. So it was just a one-liner. These two here are basically all that I ran. I can throw that up in bonus content if they want it, but really, if you have just those command names, you can do get help with those command names, and it will give you a list of all the parameters. There's not really a script; it's just a one line. It's a single command, but I can throw them up if we still need.
All right, I think this will be our last one. Will there be conflicts for a PC when it goes off network? James Dean.
I like that question.
That is an interesting one.
That is.
No, because in that group policy, you specified the name of the zone file that DNSSEC is for.
Well, and if there's a conflict, you could, there won't be, but you just said no. I'm interested in that.
It's also backwards compatible, so it doesn't require DNSSEC. So like Josh said earlier, it just falls back to normal DNS. Unless you do required with DNS over HTTPS, don't need to worry about that either. And even then, you're going to have that set up. So if it goes off network, it doesn't really matter because that's always going to be a forward or a recursive lookup. Should be an issue.
I actually had a question, Brigg. That the command that he put, allow fallback to UDP, if you require that for DoH, that's not going to work, is it?
It just allows you to fall back. So, for instance, like if the forwarding or the recursive server doesn't offer HTTPS as an option, it'll just say like, oh, okay, we'll just use UDP in the normal DNS way.
But if I set that group policy to that, I can't do
the
that.
group policy where she has it as required.
Oh, as required?
It prohibits that.
Yeah.
You could still allow the fallback.
It will allow it until GP update or until the machine is updated again with the GP or the.
Also, remember, we've got multiple hops here. From the client's perspective, it's asking a DNS server, the first one that's configured. That client doesn't have control over that next hop resolution, right?
Yeah.
So if the DNS resolver gets a request over DoH and it doesn't have that record and it goes to forward that request, the client initially made it doesn't have control over that request from that point forward.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, I think that's good to wrap it up.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we took two of the subjects that no one wants to deal with, DNS and security, and
combine them to get into one.
we made an exciting podcast out of two things that are not exciting. So
Yes.
A plus for Brigg.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, an A+ to all of you too. So for working on this.
For
So.
BDQ, I'm Jordan.
I'm Tara.
I'm Brigg.
And Josh.
All right, everybody, that is our show. This is where I butcher the outro. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. If you got any follow-up questions, you can hit us up in the chat, or you can contact our amazing support team. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you all back here next week. Take care.